All right. Hey, everybody. This is the Web3 Talks, and you're watching the very first episode. So we wanted to take a minute to introduce ourselves and kind of let you all know what's going on here. Web3 Talks is going to be talking about blockchain technology and what's going on today with blockchain connecting with businesses and businesses connecting with blockchain. And so we've got a group here on the show that are all members of Web3 Devs, and we're a blockchain development shop, and we also offer blockchain consulting. It's a distributed team, but the three members here happen to all be based out of Memphis, Tennessee for the time being. And so let's just kind of go around the horn. Aaron, you want to give a quick intro, let people know about you?
Yeah, so my name's Aaron Anderson. I co-founded Web3 Devs with Scott, James, and Brian. I've been able to hit the hackathon circuits this year. I've won like 4 or 5 of them out of the 6 I've attended. And I'm working full-time now, managing my team of full-time developers who aren't founders, and trying to win business, going and talking places like Malta. I didn't get to hit the EOS hackathon, so maybe that'll be something we can talk about, and y'all can let me know what EOS can do that I'm not aware of yet.
Yeah, and I'm Brian, blockchain developer, obviously, and I've been doing the hackathon circuit this year as well, but have not won nearly as much as Aaron has. In fact, I've never won when he's not there. So that's the new rule, is that he has to go to every hackathon. Yeah, I've been a programmer for my whole life, pretty much. Made the plunge into blockchain technology 3-4 years ago now. The thing that I'm really passionate about in the space is smart contracts specifically. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
All right, I'm Scott Finney, and I've been paying attention to blockchain for a few years now, thanks to Denver Startup Week, putting blockchain and Bitcoin on my radar way back then when there were, I don't know, not many people in the room talking about those topics. And from there, you know, I used to be a software engineer, and I kind of think of that as in a former life. I was a software engineer for 10 years. And then about 5 years ago or so, moved more into the entrepreneurial world and got more into the marketing side of things, and less of the technical stuff. But I do like to look in the code occasionally to get real geeky and see how all this smart contract, blockchain language stuff is, what it's up to and what it's doing. But yeah, I too have been hitting some events this year with the Wyoming Hackathon, and we had our ETH Memphis, and went out to the EOS Hackathon in San Francisco, which was really an incredible hackathon. They went above and beyond a lot of my experience at hackathons out there. So that was a cool event to go to. But actually it was kind of that, making that trip out there and connecting with other people and having more conversations about blockchain and where it's going, and the rising awareness in the business community, and the questions that we get around the Memphis area, and through our network of friends that are just beginning to learn what blockchain is and interested how it impacts their particular business. So especially in the Memphis area, logistics is a huge topic in medical areas, of different areas of medical, biomedical, medical devices, and there's a lot of sub areas there. So I think that goes for the intros. We were just kind of this is kind of a little test run introduction to get our first show up. And you guys want to add anything else?
I've actually got a personal story I'd like to share. I've actually known Scott for a very long time now, and I don't know if you remember this, Scott, but one day years and years ago, you're like, oh, there's this cool podcast by this Joe Rogan guy, and he had this Andreas Antonopoulos on there, and he's talking about Bitcoin. I know I've heard you talk about Bitcoin before, and you got to listen to it. So I went home and listened to it. So not only did I get into, I didn't really listen to podcasts at that point, So that's when I started podcasting. That's when I got really into the cryptocurrency and blockchain stuff. And that's when I started listening to Joe Rogan, all in the same day.
Dude, that's still an awesome episode that I like refer to people all the time. But that shit, man, that actually kind of dates when all this was going on, like with the Andreas Antonopoulos was on there, and he was discussing like that first episode he was on there, he was discussing like what Bitcoin was, like how it worked. And then he had a follow-up one where he's kind of talking about like the future and how it could be used by us to do things. But man, you were actually, I think you were kind of the only person I knew that I mentioned that to, that I knew that you had an awareness of Bitcoin before telling you about that episode. Anybody else was like, oh no, it wasn't on their radar just yet.
Yeah. So we got a common thread there. I think the first Antonopoulos episode I heard on Joe Rogan's podcast, it was like 3 or 4 years ago, wasn't it? So I was driving a truck for a living, and I was, it was the middle of the night, and I was halfway between like Waukesha, Wisconsin, and Chicago, and I heard that podcast about Bitcoin and all that, and I don't know, at the time it was like $300, maybe $600, and I was like, man, I wish I had some money to invest in it. And so as time went on, that introduction to cryptocurrency and smart contracts and all that actually put me on the path to becoming a developer. So I started doing a little VBA programming while I was building a transmission line and managing people there. And I found out I could code, like not all that difficult if you have good resources and whatnot. And then with Bitcoin being primarily, with blockchain being primarily a web technology and VBA not being a web technology, I knew that I'd need some additional education to become a web developer so that I can, dive into blockchain development. And so whenever I had time and money together, instead of investing in cryptocurrency, I actually invested in sending myself to a coding boot camp at the Iron Yard. And that's where I learned web development. And then I spent the next month learning how to interact with the EVM and learning dApp development. And immediately following that's when I met Brian and just asked him for an internship. So shortly after that, I got an offer to be a coach.
I was going to say, that led to a lot more than an internship.
Great.
Dude, that's funny that all those events were like off of that same podcast.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's great. All our origin stories. All right. Well, should we wrap up this intro?
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, people let us know in the comments any specific subjects you want to hear about in the future. Like Scott said, we'll be doing one of these once a week.